I've got 7 individual pieces that I need to cut, and they're split up into 4 groups. Inside each group is 5 to 6 tool paths and 1 flip. I'm going to mill the back side first, flip the pieces over, and then mill the front side. All 21 of these tool paths were created using Fusion 360, but I'm using Easel to communicate with the X-Carve. The big plate was the same as the little plate, so I didn't show you that. Alright, let's talk about this thing. I've been sitting on this idea for about 3 or 4 years now, and the original plan was to cut the entire thing, frame and all, on the CNC. The problem I ran into once I calculated the tool path times was that it was going to be over 24 hours of machining per side. If anything happened to go wrong during those 24 hours per side, I'd have to start over, so that would be a tremendous waste of material and a tremendous waste of time. By only machining the individual components and building the frame myself, I could cut down the machining time and also give myself a bit of leeway if there were any failures. And unfortunately, there were some failures. The first was this one, where I had misaligned these alignment pins, so when I flipped it, the front and the back didn't line up. The second failure was on the fork. The tines were a little bit too skinny and the machining pads were a little bit too aggressive, so they vibrated and broke off. I probably could have fixed this, but I just recut the fork. The third failure was machining the cup. I didn't have dust collection going, so all the cut material built up on the V-wheels and actually clogged the CNC, so I started missing steps. Typically on a project like this, as time goes on, I fall more and more in love with it. But this one was the exact opposite. The renderings I did looked amazing, and I fully expected the finished product to look just as good. But something's just not quite right about it. Maybe it's the proportions, maybe it's the material choice. Maybe I could have dyed this a different color. Maybe it's a 3D printer project, but there's just something about this. I love each individual component, I just don't love it as a whole. Anyways, this was a real test of skills. It took me 2 weeks to figure out the tool paths and everything else. It took me another week of cutting, including the failures. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I know I could do it in a lot less time if I had to do it again, and maybe if I find a different material or I figure out what's missing, I'll revisit this in the future. As always, thanks for watching, and if you have any suggestions about what you'd do different to make this even better, let me know. I also want to thank Inventables for sponsoring this video and making all of this possible. Links to everything are where you'd expect to find them, and come find me on all the other social media platforms. Until next time.